Oh, you bugger. An early morning rain sounds like a great idea until you realise just how bloody cold it is. Hello again, YouTube. Just out for an early Sunday morning bimble. It is just gone 7:30. It's a lovely morning. It's a wee bit chilly, but it's nice. And I'm winging it again today. I haven't really got any topics in mind to talk about. To be completely honest, I'm not completely awake yet. Late night last night, playing Destiny, I have to admit. So, yeah, just driving through the golf course. As you can see, crazy people whacking little white balls around at ungodly hours in the morning. I don't really get it, but each to their own. Actually, I haven't talked much about my SAD. Or another ailment I suffer from, which is dyslexia, which when I was young and it wasn't really recognised, it gave me a serious amount of problems, especially considering I didn't actually know I had anything wrong. People used to accuse me of being a lazy troublemaker, whatever. Really, whoop, get out their way, you bugger. The reality was, I just wasn't able to do schoolwork and what have you just to the same standard as everyone else. Anyway, getting off the track. I didn't actually teach myself to read until I was around 22. I could read after a fashion, but I couldn't properly read, if you know what I mean. Hang on, this is the problem with winging it, you see. Your mind goes blank and you haven't got a clue what to say. Yeah, but even with that, I still used to love stories. I used to love coming up with stories. In younger days of school, infant school, they used to have word cards, and this is probably the worst road to pick the drive on, but never mind. Yeah, so there's cards printed on these words printed on these cards, and you can set these cards out in little stands and make sentences and what have you. And I used to be able to do that. I seemed to be able to recognise the word for what it was, but I couldn't actually spell it, write it down. Anyway, like I say, I really loved stories, but couldn't read. And I did actually used to write. But it used to take a long time. The spelling was obviously atrocious. And I used to muddle through. And believe it or not, I actually probably wrote 4 novels. Not completed, obviously, and obviously not to a finished standard. But I did used to write. But I think the thing that held us back was I couldn't read a novel. I mean, I could sit there and read, but it would take me probably, I don't know, an hour to read a single page. Reading was that bad. I used to read a sentence, and then I would have to go back and read it again, or stop halfway through and really try and figure out a word that I couldn't sort of construct in my mind's eye. And actually my nephew, who was quite a few years younger than me, was an avid reader, which I thought was great. And I used to tell him, you know, that I thought it was great and I couldn't do it and all this. Sheep! And one day he brought a book around for us. He says, try that. And I says, well, it's a novel. I says, come back next year and I might be halfway through it. And that was genuine. And he said, okay. And he took it away with him. And he come back the next week with another book of short stories. And he says, here you go. These are short stories. Have a go at these. And he says, you know, there's only sort of 10-20 pages per story. I thought, oh, that sounds like a good idea. So I dived into this book, and I actually managed to read several of these short stories. I think it was Stephen King. I think it was. I can't remember. It was a long, long time ago. This was when I was in my early 20s. And anyway, he come back a few weeks later, like I say, after I'd finished a couple of these short stories. How did you get on? And I was elated. I was great. You know, I actually read a complete story. Okay, it wasn't a novel, but it was still a complete story. And he brought back with him the original book that he'd suggested I read, and I said, no. God, there's a lot of bikers out there. And I said, no, I'm still not confident enough. He says, okay, here's another one. He had this huge bag, tons of books in. He used to bus down from where he lived, and he used to be on the bus for like an hour. So he used to bring a book, or several, to read on the bus. And he says, okay, here's another short story book. See if you can read some of those. So I says, okay, I can do that. And I read more, and I was feeling like I was reading a little bit quicker, and I was a little bit more confident. So a few weeks went by, brought this novel back, and he says, right, try the novel again. He says, with the short stories you've read, you've pretty much read a novel. And I thought, bloody hell, you're right. So I took this novel off him, Dean Orkun's The Bad Place. The very first novel I ever read from start to finish. And the absolute elation I got from completing that book was just insane. It was ridiculous. I remember in my man cave at the time, I sat myself down on the floor and started to read this book, and I just kept going. I must have been there 8 hours easily on my first sitting with this book. I mean, it probably took me, I'm guessing now, I can't really remember, it probably took me about 2 weeks to actually finish the thing, but so what? I'd actually made a huge, huge achievement. I thought to myself. And from that day to this, Dean Orkun's, or Dean Koontz, The Bad Place, is a pivotal book in my mind. Simply because of it being the very first book I read. And the crazy thing is, being at school and what have you, and those people are trying to help me to read, and none of it worked. None of it worked. And then just because of a simple idea that my nephew came up with, and the way he worded it, and the way there was no pressure, that was it. he got us to read. I still can't read very well. I'm still very, very slow. But I can read. And I do read. I read lots of novels. My wife and I have quite an extensive library. Unfortunately, at the minute, there's just no time. It's been quite a while since I've read a novel, but that's simply because of time. That's not because I don't want to or I feel like I can't, because I know I can. Now, I was 22 at the time when I did that. I'm 47 years old now. And all that still is very, very vivid in my mind. And I will actually be forever grateful to my nephew for what he did that day, or over those few weeks. I'm sure he hasn't got a clue what he actually did or how much it meant to me, but I will be forever grateful. And funny enough, I actually got together with my wife initially because of our love of novels and writing. We actually met online. I know that sounds cliched, but we did. We got to know each other quite well before we ever met. And it's funny, I mean, you get to know people online and a lot of the time that person is manufactured, if you know what I mean. It's very easy to manufacture a persona for yourself instead of actually being who you actually are. And I am very guilty. I used to do that all the time, way back in the days of the original AOL and what have you. But with Mrs. Ash, I don't think we really did that, to be honest. We just seemed to enjoy each other, talking to each other. She was going through quite a bad period in her life at the time, and I was very, very happy to listen to any problems that she wanted to tell me about, and I felt it was great to have someone honest to talk to myself. Anyway, back to the point. My wife is actually a novelist, published in 6 different languages, sold in blah de blah de blah, however many different countries. She's quite a successful writer. I actually stopped writing the very day my wife got her first publishing contract. I still wrote up until that point, but I needed a lot of help with spelling, punctuation, this, that and the other, and obviously as soon as my wife got her contract, it was obvious I couldn't take up her time to tell me with that stuff, because she had her own work to get on with, which is great. She often actually asks me if I resent the fact that she is now a published author, which I can't quite get my head around that. Obviously not, no chance, no way. I mean, I could live vicariously through her success, and it is successful. Yes, I miss writing, but at the same time, writing, even though it's a pleasure, it's bloody hard work. Believe me. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have ever tried to write a novel or short story or anything like that, but coming up with the ideas, coming up with the characters is huge fun. Creating worlds is amazing. but actually constructing a novel, or pages even, is incredibly hard. It's very satisfying when you manage it, but it's a lot of hard work. I do actually quite admire my wife for what she does, to be honest. She's currently on her 4th novel, which is a bit of a struggle. This is the 4th in a series, and it's the final of the series, and it's proven to be a bit of a headache for her, but she's ploughing on and she's going to finish it, and she has ideas for at least another 2 novels after this one, which is fantastic. So there you go, just another little insight into the world of Rob Ash. If you're still awake, thank you very much. I'm sorry to bore you, I know I waffled on quite a bit there. It's early morning, I'm still not completely awake, I'm enjoying the ride, and I'm finding it quite hard to come up with stuff to blab about, but there you go. Anyway, I'll bid you farewell. I hope you enjoyed the ride. It's a little bit different to what I usually do. No run to the post office today, post box even. So, thanks a lot for listening. I'll catch you next time. Take it easy. Have a good Sunday, if it is a Sunday, where you are. All the best.